All right. Hi, everybody. It's our CFB Talk 143. It is Tuesday night. This is when we like to talk to you. So if you want to talk about college football, feel free to hit request. We'll have a nice conversation about what's going on. And I am happily having this one out here in the lovely state, the lovely nation of Canada. And let's see here. I've got JV. He's going to be co-hosting with me. Going to send him an invite, and let's talk college football. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and send my customary request tweet. If you want to join us, just hit request on the Twitter app, and we'll get you up here, and we can talk about what's going on in college football. But before we begin, JV, what's going on? It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been a very hot minute over the last 5 months or so. Apparently, if you have a kid, change a job, are doing a full semester of grad school, moving locations, and doing a bunch of stuff in between all of that, apparently you get a little bit busy. So apologize for being a little MIA, but happy to sneak out for this one tonight.
Absolutely. And again, it's been a nice kind of time right now. Lots of off-season news, especially we've got all the regular stuff going on. In addition to trying to figure out as teams get ready for the season, you've got all the potential conference moves because we're still in this weird waiting period to see what's going to happen with the Pac-12 and their media deal. NIL news just keeps getting stranger only because we seem to be heading towards an unexpected climax where we're going to find out exactly how far courts and the government are going to take NIL rules that are starting to blur the line between what was a university and what's an institution that might be paying athletes in everything but name. We talked a bit about that last week. You know, in addition, there's other things too. I mean, I just want to take one moment. I took a second today because I'm here in Vancouver area just to drive over to a campus I'd always wanted to see. I planned to come out here, and then they go and drop football this past season. But Simon Fraser, which is out in suburban Vancouver in Burnaby, it had a D2 football team. They were the only Canadian football team in the NCAA. They've got their own league out here for college football in, I guess, called the university sports, U Sports. But yeah, it was neat to see the campus. It's really cool. It's all brutalist in a level I've never seen before outside of the Soviet Union. But it was real neat. But it was sad because they had a brand new stadium, and of course they've got they had to drop the program. And why did they have to drop the program? Because of actually conference maneuvers. D2 conferences, especially on the West Coast, were starting to tighten up a little bit. All their conference mates joined the Lone Star Conference, which, as you can guess, is out in Texas. And they weren't given an invite because it's so hard to get teams, especially D2 teams, out to Canada. So they've got all their other sports, but football, they just weren't going to be able to find those opponents. So that one got dropped. You know, JD, we got a guest who wants to come up. Let's go ahead and let him up. Let's talk some college football with Big Mac. Going to go ahead and let you up right now. And when you get up here, just feel free to hit unmute and we'll hear from you.
Oh, how we doing?
Great, man. How are you?
Never better. Here from sunny New England. And I just wanted to, one, shout out to U Sports. Actually, I have a lot of friends who play for the University of Calgary for some reason. Go Dinos.
Yes.
One of the great mascots in college athletics. But also, you know what? I just wanted to say, how are we feeling about Boston College next year? You know what I mean? I feel like, the team definitely struggled last year, but, I think that remade O-line, they've had some success on the recruiting trail. I think this team could realistically win 7 games. Am I completely delusional?
They've got some great running backs that are all returning. And as you said, that offensive line, if it can stay together, that's a 1-2 combination that's huge. Now they got a new head coach though, don't they? I mean, they've got
BC did not. BC's sticking with Hafley.
Okay, yes. So pardon me, Hafley's second season. I always mix up what season some of the guys are in.
Fourth season, believe it or not. It's amazing he's made it this far.
Wow. But yeah, I mean, and then what? Emmett Moorhead, he's the QB right now.
Yeah.
So what? So let's see here. What? 7 wins doesn't seem all that out of.
I can see 7. I mean, just looking at this schedule right now, you've got a couple of easy ones in non-conference. You've got Holy Cross as your FCS.
Hey, that's a rivalry.
You're going to play UConn. I know. But I'm just going to say, if Hafley can't beat Holy Cross in year 4, he's probably not going to see a year 5. But Holy Cross, I think that's going to be a win for y'all. Northern Illinois, you've got that opportunity. UConn and Army, those are games that are also winnable. So really, looking just at the non-conference, you should see 4 pretty decent wins that I would give Boston College the edge on. And then you'll have games like against Syracuse. Virginia Tech is coming off a woeful 2-win season. You've got other teams in the ACC that are still trying to find their new cadence. Georgia Tech is going into a new year. Jeff Brom in his first year at Louisville is going to be overhauling that program. I think out of all of those, I don't think it's unreasonable for Boston College to try to find 7 wins out of this upcoming season.
Oh, cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. So again, if you'd like to join in, any questions, we welcome them. All about college football. It's Tuesday night. It's when we like to hear from you. One of the things that kind of caught my eye, and this is sort of on the lighter note, we're a lot of fun. Again, it's off season. Folks like to bring up kind of fun conversations on our CFB, one of which was some of the dumbest college football rivalries. And this one Louisville fan really had a problem, and I don't know why, with the Illabuck, Illinois versus Ohio State. He was, I guess, hearing how the Big Ten is going to lock in some of those rivalries that they've said they are going to. They're going to apparently play every year again soon, and he thinks he could care less about it. But although he acknowledges it's a cool turtle trophy, so if that's another potential generator of topic of conversation, if there's a rivalry you never understood, we'd love to hear that too. I mean, JD, is there a college football rivalry you don't understand?
I mean, how long do we want to go about the civil conflict?
Okay, that's not bad, although that is a great... the only thing that made that rivalry, and for those who may have forgotten, that is UConn versus UCF, which mysteriously started and was kind of forced in the American for a while there. And, it was funny. Which coach was the one that was obsessed with it? One of the coaches really...
That was Bob Diaco. Yeah. That was Bob Diaco up at UConn. And of course, like the best part of that quote unquote rivalry was them just completely abandoning the trophy after winning one of the games. And then for a while, it just being in the ether of nobody knew where that trophy actually went. Only one school even cared about trying to find it again. And I just think that's absolutely hilarious if we're going to talk about dumb rivalries, because the best dumb rivalries aren't the ones that are actually like real and truly dumb. Like, I mean, you could always make an argument of, yes, like you see a bunch of dumb stuff when you have like Louisville, Cincinnati, for example, but that's an actual historical rivalry where they do a battle for a rivalry trophy. And there's actual historical significance behind that type of rivalry. There's dumb stuff that happens in it. And I mean, you could say that with a lot of other things. I mean, kick six anyone between Auburn and Alabama. But when it comes to like the true real dumb rivalries, they are always the ones that are completely one-sided and the other side does not even remotely care about it whatsoever. They don't engage in any of that history and tradition. That's always the best kind of dumb rivalry.
Yeah, I agree. The ones that are annoying are the ones that seem manufactured. I didn't even know about some of the ones that were brought up in our CFB, like the Florida State fan Doggerel brought up the fact that I guess the Noles have a rivalry with UVA for a trophy. I didn't even know about it. The Jefferson Epps Trophy. So I guess you learned a little bit about random things and all of that stuff. And oh gosh, one piece of news, though, I do want to just sort of congratulate, because we've been touching on this here and there. I've said this before, but USF, South Florida, has been so, they've been deliberate and gradual through this entire process because they've really wanted an on-campus stadium. And they haven't been making, enormous splashes. They've been sort of saying, okay, we're going to, for literally, I swear it's been 2 years now. They were like, okay, we're going to start looking into the possibility of a stadium. We're going to commission a report. They wouldn't say anything more about it. The report would come out. The report said we're going to move forward to finding an estimate. They would move forward with it. Now we need to find a location. Months would pass again. They look forward to it. So we've been creeping towards this point. And so the big news that came out today is sort of the culmination of that, or at least a major step in that spot, that the USF Board of Trustees has approved the plan for a new $340 million on-campus football stadium. That was reported in multiple places. Matt Baker over at the Tampa Bay Times is a great follower of RCFB. He's even been willing to discuss some of his own articles with some of the readers on the website. But he broke that news today, and I think that's really interesting because I think that's going to be a big changer for them because UCF made all the right choices, and it's fun to think back, to 2007, that wacky season where USF managed to briefly climb to number 2 in the BCS rankings before losing, like so many other BCS number 2s did that year. After that season, I would have expected, if you had just stopped it right there, USF would have been the one to be, joining the Big 12 this upcoming season. But due to a series of, you could argue, coaching misfires and also UCF kind of taking a different approach, they managed to build an on-campus stadium. I forgot what it's called right now. I still want to call it Bright House. I know they changed it. I know they call it the Jump House or something like that. But they managed to build an on-campus stadium. Obviously, they had that wild year where they went undefeated. So that kind of, I think, built their reputation while USF is sort of languished. They play, obviously, where the Buccaneers play. So it's not like they have a bad stadium. It's just not quite on that campus. And they've got, like so many of those public universities in Florida, just a ton of students. So I think they're hoping that building a 35,000-seat stadium on campus is going to be giving them that push that the Bulls are looking for. I noticed, Big Mac, did you want to add something to that?
Sorry, I just want to say, I think the bounce house. That's what they call it.
Yes, thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, so I should know this. We got a guy, and he sometimes joins us up here, Anthony, who's quite good about all this stuff. But anyway, so that's big news for USF. We're looking forward to seeing how that moves forward. Obviously, he'll probably get some corporate names. Who knows what it's going to be called right now. But it'll be good for, I think, USF to get that on-campus stadium that they've been working for so long. JD, what I got to ask, because it's been a little while, what story has struck you the most in the past couple of months?
I think the story that struck me the most over the last couple of months, at least college football wise, I'm really intrigued with the full-on push of Charlie Baker at the NCAA trying to get congressional buy-in for regulation throughout the sport. We knew that was going to be a major part of his presidency, and it's why they brought him in. He was a very popular bipartisan governor who has a lot of contacts in D.C., but to see how strongly the NCAA has put their entire fortunes and favor for the future into making sure that he can actually get stuff done at the congressional level. I think it's been fascinating to see where they've been advocating for NIL rules on the state level, where they've been advocating for regulations and monopoly trusts and all this kind of stuff in Congress. That's always been really, really fascinating to me in this offseason because I've strongly felt, and I mean, we've talked about this at length in previous shows before, we're all about making sure that the guys who are putting in the work have an opportunity to get part of the pie, right? They have the opportunity to make some money because they're the ones putting their bodies on the line. They're the one bringing in the product. Let them have it. Let them have the opportunity to change schools if they need to go change schools. But if the NCAA wanted to do something about it, they've had the opportunity to do something about it for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. But now they're at the Hail Mary of praying to Congress and getting that done. But to see the strategies that Charlie Baker has been coming out with and like the full court press, almost as a last ditch effort. There's a couple of lawsuits that are now making their way up towards the Supreme Court. I think that's going to be a fascinating turn for the NCAA in the future. And I think that is hands down the story of the offseason so far.
Yeah. And I think that you've covered some of those key moments in all of that. This is in the way, the fact that the NCAA sort of, for whatever reason, just decided to not address this topic until the genie was out of the bottle. They're trying what amounts to a Hail Mary by trying to get Congress to step in. Now, I've mentioned it before. There's pluses and minuses to this, and it's easy to see why. I think part of the problem, because a lot of big coaches went to D.C. In the past week or so. Nick Saban was one of them. To go talk about some of these thoughts in all of it. And one of the concerns is, when people hear someone like a Kirby Smart or Nick Saban saying we need to be all on the same playing field, people are like, you guys always win everything. That's ridiculous. So I think in a way, part of the problem is they get the attention of congressional members when they come and speak to them because, wow, Nick Saban's coming to speak to me. But at the same time, people kind of look down on what they're saying. But I've mentioned before, but what we're seeing now, like Texas's law just was just signed by the governor. All these states are passing such different rules from each other. There's actually another cloud that's starting to appear. And we had a really great caller last week who was actually just finished writing a law review article on this, a comment as a student, because you have to read a ton of law articles to put one of these together. The big concern is these states are in a rush to please their constituents and please their coaches, and coming up with all these wacky rules could potentially accidentally completely erode any semblance of athletes aren't, the student athletes aren't employees, which is barely holding on right now. And some of these states are passing rules where courts can eventually potentially just say, this is an employee relationship. You're all employees. And so I think part of the reason what Charlie Baker, and remember, he's the NCAA president. He's like a sports commissioner. There's 1,000 members of the NCAA. He's basically speaking on their behalf. And in fact, to his credit, I remember there was an article that came out, basically some insults of Mark Emmert, because some guys were like, I actually saw this guy, Charlie Baker. We talked to him. We couldn't even believe it kind of moment. But what we're hearing from him, it's basically kind of, I think, a sense of all of these universities are a little nervous about what could happen if this doesn't happen. While, don't get me wrong, if you're in Mizzou right now, this is awesome. You are the only state, you're the only FBS program in a state that allows high schoolers that commit to your school to get NIL deals. No team allows that. No school can allow that. Florida was so thrilled because in February, they were able to revise their NIL laws to make it less stringent. And then Oklahoma, Mizzou, and now Texas, which is closer to the Oklahoma laws, have all passed saying like the NCAA can't even enforce their rules in our state. In fact, I think Oklahoma wrote theirs in a way that means the SEC can't even enforce their rules in their state. So you get all kinds of wackiness in all of this. And you can imagine, like, if you're a D3 program and all of this, and you're watching the SEC states, all 11 of them racing to loosen up these rules so much, you could eventually find yourself in a position where it's like, wait, we have employees now? We can't, a lot of these athletic programs, they're fighting, and D3 is great, great example of it. A lot of programs, they're the ones I'd like to add programs because it's a great way to get young people on the campus who would otherwise not be there. And it's a non-scholarship program. So you can get some folks just like D2. D2 only has a few scholarships, and NAIA similar, where you can get people on campus that might not otherwise be there. So, Thak, I see you out there. Let's have you join us, man. It's been a minute.
Oh, howdy. I was going to say there's a bill coming through the California. I think it's coming through the California Senate right now, but it would actually pay athletes directly, like as university employees. It would be the first bill that directly is intended to do that. It's really interesting because California was kind of the state that started this whole NIL thing. They were way ahead of the legal curve on that. And so I think that if we're going to see athletes become university employees, it's going to be through that.
I agree. And I that one, actually, it's so funny you brought that up. The same gentleman who had written that article that I mentioned for his law review, he brought that up, and I was just like stunned when I heard that one, because if that manages to move through, that'll be something else. But also, I just want to go ahead and let Thak jump in, and we just let you up on stage. How are you doing, man?
Doing wonderful, fellas. Good to see you as always, and happy to have JD back in the presenter seat. It's been a while since you joined us in the off season, but man, just touching that. I know you guys talked a little bit about it, but the Missouri NIL law that was just passed, and obviously I'm a big Mizzou fan, and I think it's the smartest play. It was lobbied by Coach Drinkwitz, of course, as well as state senators that enjoy in sports. I think it's the right move for NIL, and it's gonna be huge here in this 2024 recruiting class, especially with a super high amount of in-state talent coming out of Missouri, especially Ryan Wingo, the number 2 wide receiver / number 1 in that 2024 class out of SLU High. Could be the next Luther Burden for us, but I think it's the right play. It's depressing that's what this has all come to, and Nick Saban said it. I mean, if this is the way you guys want to play, then the game is going to change immensely, and it's a little bit frustrating. It's when you pass these sort of sweeping NIL legislation a couple of years ago, you sort of expected, okay, well, the smaller players, they're going to get a sponsorship from the local bar to get a thicker kicker burger. And, some of the big guys might get Nike deals or something like that. But it's just evolved into complete booster land where we're creating crazy laws. And what do you expect to happen? The other thing, too, that I saw on the news recently that I'm absolutely kind of loving. I know most people would hate it, but I think it's pretty cool. Another out-of-country game. Possibly a Big 12 bowl game in Mexico.
In Monterrey, yeah.
I'm kind of excited for that. I think the Irish game is super fun and super wacky and a ton of fun. It was, of course, the only game that Northwestern won, I want to say.
Yeah, they were the Irish national champs. They won one game in Ireland and didn't win any more last season.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of college football needs kind of this more wacky things, and obviously the teams aren't they're getting frustrated. More people would like more home games, and that's totally understandable. You've got the Florida Georgia world's largest outdoor cocktail party, where fans on both sides have been calling for years just to get a home and home. But I don't know. I like this. I think it's a lot cooler. Sad to, I think they just renewed the world's largest outdoor cocktail party for another couple seasons, I want to say, in the new stadium. But I know that they're trying to push away from these neutral site games. And I think this will be a bowl game, if I'm not mistaken, though.
Yeah, this one in Monterey. I'm not sure if it's exactly. It's a little vague right now. When they first, because Brett Yormark, as we've said, I'm a big fan of his at the Big 12. They've been trying lots of radical new ideas because he came with someone who had been, an exciting guy as an executive in the NBA, particularly with the New Jersey Nets. So he comes in and he's like, we're going to start all these crazy partnerships. Like, that's why suddenly they had Streetwear Bathing Ape as like their sponsor for the championship game with a wacky logo in the middle of the field. But yeah, so they mentioned, I think it was back in February, that this was rumored to be coming out, and then it's kind of got back in the news again, because they basically established we are going to establish Big 12 Mexico immediately, and it makes sense logistically. It's easier. They're going to throw some basketball games, I believe, in at least in Mexico City for sure. It's funny though; most people don't realize it's Monterrey, which is a major city in Mexico. It's not a small city by any stretch. That's like it's almost like there's the college football heart of Mexico. They've got two great programs there. In fact, their reigning champs are Monterrey Tech. And obviously, it's not quite the same level. It's not like FBS football, but they're pretty good. Like, if you watch it, it's solid football they play down there. So that's why they want to have a game. And I think it might just be trying to go back to some of those old 80s classics that were out in, Japan and other places. But this won't be too far away. I mean, Monterrey is not far from the rest of the Big 12 country and the rest of the United States, quite frankly. So it'll be interesting to see that. And I think anyone who's been down in Mexico, I've been in Mexico City recently. Like, there's a lot of hunger for American football down there. So this should be a huge piece of it. I think it'll be nice to see how this develops out in the next couple of years. Because I think, again, basketball, they can get that moving pretty quickly, but football, I believe they're looking at aiming right now. Oh yeah, and sorry, I just saw that update from Thamel that it was like the postseason of 2026. Is when they were potentially looking, I guess, to do a bowl game. But I know they were at one point even talking about a regular season game out there. So we'll see. I mean, I'm excited to see that.
I'm super. I'm amazed as what the Big 12 is doing. I think they're trying something different. I know that. Obviously, they know that they don't have the crazy big names with Texas and Oklahoma again, and they've got to innovate and try something funky. And honestly, I really like the additions. BYU, I think, is a great addition, and UCF. I think it's funky, and I think it's fun, and I think it's going to be like the XFL 1.0. It's going to be the extra fun league where they're trying maybe not. to get, instead of a coin toss, a scramble into the middle of the field from 20
That was
yards
the
away.
first thing I thought about.
Oh yeah, I mean it's hilarious, but maybe something a little more subtle, and I'm all here for it. I think the Big 12 is going to be a fun league to watch.
Hey, Coach Clark, I see you're up here. What's going on?
Well, I don't know. I think I sent you a message. I know you got a bunch of stuff going on, but I'm seeing with all this NIL stuff. I was teaching Steinbeck when I was subbing the other day. Mice and Men, and it's a very pale look on capitalism. I found out that the author, he was a member of a communist writers group, in the 30s. But one of the points was that the working class didn't have a lot of options, and now with the portal, one of the positives of the portal and this NIL stuff is you can go play for the highest bidder, I guess. And if you're not liking your situation, you can move. Something not, there was just all this stuff going on the internet and the press about when Pat Narduzzi called out Prime. I think I sent you a message about that. And I have respect for both coaches. I've heard, Narduzzi talk. It was a really pretty good clinic talk. It made a lot of sense, and I like a lot of what Prime says, especially when it comes to getting noticed by a coach when you go to a showcase or something like that. But he's been getting a lot of heat because they've had a lot of player turnover, what in business school they call turnover margin, where you have a bunch of, they have a bunch of players coming and going, and you kind of got to do that if you're trying to change a culture sometimes. I went through that as a player. I was playing at Tabor College, in the 2009 season, we went 0-10, and there was a lot of reasons for that. It really wasn't, practices weren't very productive. Guys were fighting all the time, calling each other names. There really wasn't we had a bunch of superstars, and guys that really didn't play as a team. And certain guys got special treatment, and that, while I'm, playing defensive tackle, trying to run backwards on punt return team, which I'm not very good at, there's guys that are sitting out half a practice and starting on Saturday. But so they rehire Coach Gardner. He comes back, and we start with 6 a.m. runs. And during that, when he got hired back, a lot of guys transferred out. There's, the guys that were legit players, we stuck around. My friend Joey Erickson that owns all of our passing records there. A couple of backs, some of our offensive and defensive linemen, we stuck around. Guys that are my friends for life. And the guys that were the favorites of the coach or their go-to for the previous administration, they were all gone. And so the people that stick around at Colorado, they're going to be the guys that buy into that. They're going to buy into what Prime wants to do, and it's very simple. You do what we ask you to do and try to the best of your ability. Why are you going to keep someone around that isn't getting the job done? This is college football. This ain't an after-school program,
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And it's oh my goodness. Well, let's see here. One thing I want to know, I know, JD, I just want to respect your time. I know you have a hard stop in about a couple of minutes. I just wanted to let you get in some final thoughts before we continue our conversation. Because I don't need to wrap this up exactly at 9:30, but it was awesome to have you back up here. I know it's been a crazy couple of months for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly do appreciate it. And I know that we are kind of in the doldrums of the off season right now. We've got media days around the corner, so we'll be able to get our annual chirping in from headlines that don't particularly matter, but it's always the good fun anyway that lets us know that fall camp is on the way and football is on the way as well. So delighted to be back on here. And just as a final plug for me, if anybody wants a beautiful condo in South Austin, please hit me up in the DMs. I am trying to sell.
Oh my goodness, that's a fun market down there. But good luck, JD. Thanks for joining us again this week. My one of my great co-hosts, along with Sirius, which Twitter apparently does not like to host him anymore. He's on the platform, but the last time he tried to join me when I was down in Boston, like we were spending quietly 15 minutes of the show just trying to get him on, and for some reason the system just didn't like him that day. But like you, JD, as do I and our audience. But good luck with everything. Good luck with. I know what it's like to be a parent of a young child, so it's not it can be an adventure. Yes, it can. On top of everything else you've got going. I want to just hit on a couple of other really quick topics before we wrap up here, because one of the things that this one came out last week. I believe it was an memo on Thursday of last week. Pardon me, it was issued on Friday. Good old Friday news dump. The IRS, important entity in any part of all of this, has issued a memo that nonprofit NIL collectives are not tax exempt. So these memos, they're basically released by government entities. If you deal with any government agency, you know how important that is. When they drop a memo, it's basically like, here are our thoughts on this. You need to know about it. It's so funny. I also associate this with things that have messed with the crypto community. I'm not a crypto person myself, but every time they're thinking they have one thing, something gets dropped. I don't know if there's a connection, but I just thought I'd mention that. So the IRS has dropped a 12-page memo that basically says that NIL collectives will not be able to deduct those who donate to them, even though these collectives may have 501c3 status. The actual donations that are going to some of these will not be considered tax deductible. Now, there's a lot of wiggle room there. Anyone who knows tax law, anyone who knows the CPA knows that there's a billion ways to work around a lot of the things that the IRS says. So we'll see where this goes. But the reason it kind of becomes important is actually, again, Texas A&M, who seems to lead the charge on things that kind of make people raise their eyebrows. Nonprofit collectives, Texas A&M announced their 12th Man Foundation, a very well-established nonprofit. They created the 12th Man Plus Fund to provide NIL opportunities. And the problem is that one really does start to blur on what's happening on behalf of the institution. And Texas A&M was believed to be the first school to have an official athletic booster organization do the fundraising for NIL versus a separate collective altogether. So that's why they've become they've notably not sponsored an athlete like this yet, even though they announced it a while back in February, because I think the thought is that they are trying to be careful if this is not going to pass muster, they don't accidentally create a havoc at a program that has a lot of money and a lot of stress based on what goes on the field and off the field. So this new letter memo from the IRS is going to be one of those things that we're going to be hearing about, I think, in the background, particularly if it starts to have a cooling effect on some of those that are donating to these NIL collectives that are saying it's tax deductible. So we'll see how that moves forward, because this has been just an exciting time. I mean, even though it's so funny, JD, as he was heading out, said that we're in the doldrums. I'm like, normally this would be the doldrums, but all this NIL stuff out of nowhere has just absolutely made this one of the weirdest, inexplicable off seasons. It's kind of killing time for us while we wait to see if there is going to be any solid news from the Pac-12 on that media rights deal. And speaking of which, I have to still touch on this. There was a great quote out there from the president of the University of Arizona on their TV deal. With the quote, "We're not going to get a Big Ten deal. He didn't say we're not going to get an SEC deal. But if we finish third in the sweepstakes, I've never thought that winning the bronze medal was a great aspirational goal. But if we win a bronze medal, I think we'd all declare victory." That is 100%, I think, how most people would view that. And that was tweeted out by Ross Dellinger back almost a week ago. But yeah, it's a race for third. And you're hearing it from a Pac-12 president. They're waiting to see if their media rights deal will beat the, I believe it's like $31.7 million that the Big 12 is offering, or at least be close enough to make a team jumping ship not quite as attractive for all the other headaches it might cause. We'll see. Colorado keeps coming up as an idea that they might return, and to say nothing else about the rest of the border states. But we'll see where that goes. So I just want to thank everyone who joined us. Obviously, Coach Clark, it's always great to have you up here. Thak, it's always great to have you up here. I see our good friend Quinshawn is him. I apologize we didn't get to you tonight. Next week, hopefully. And it was great to have my regular co-host, JD, who was able to come up and join us again. So on behalf of all of us here at RCFB, myself here in Vancouver on holiday, This is Bob Akayeri. This was our CFB Talk 143. We'll be here every Tuesday night. So I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Let's see what happens in the offseason. I'm going to hang up now and listen.